Hello, hello. Welcome back, my friends, to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. Today, we are having a conversation with my soul. We learn more about ourselves as we learn about others. So I wanted to talk to my soul about who I am, who we all are underneath just this vessel. We also go into some collective stuff to help us better navigate through this weird, tumultuous time. The collective, we're on a bit of a roller coaster. Here we go. Let's dive in. Alrighty, welcome back. I've got a list of questions that I wanted to ask my soul and essentially just do like a live channeling to see what comes through. So we're just gonna buckle in and jump on this adventure together. As I ask my soul questions, I want you to understand that you have access to your own soul as well. One practice that I love to teach is the golden bubble. Imagine a gold sparkling light at your heart chakra. Imagine it expand through your body, encompassing you in this beautiful egg of golden light. Call in your soul to fill the space within the bubble and ask them questions, just as we are going to be doing today. Okay, so we're unpacking my soul in real time, but maybe following this, you want to tap into your soul in real time. All right, scooting into the questions. I want to start by asking, what part of you have I misunderstood the most? Ooh, and in asking that question, so when I first felt my soul, I saw a lot of blues and purples, very like holographic kind of iridescent energy. And in asking that question, the energy switched to become very deep. I'm seeing deep blues and purples now rather than that light, like iridescent, shiny type. Now we're on the opposite side of the spectrum. Almost reminds me of an oil spill. And in that, my soul is basically saying, okay, I'm a very sensitive person. I feel a lot. I get my feelings hurt very easily. I'm very sensitive. And my soul is basically saying, you forgot how strong we are. You forgot that we can actually get through a lot. I think because my body is so sensitive, I have a tendency of trying to avoid discomfort out of fear that it's going to be sort of like all consuming and very painful and just, cause this horrible spiral down. But she's saying, no, we can handle that. Your body is sensitive and feels a lot so that you understand the various layers in place. You can kind of, see what's going on a little deeper. But that doesn't mean it's harmful. You're just gaining a lot more information that is a little deep, and your physical body doesn't necessarily know what to do with that, because the human body is not necessarily, especially in this current form of our evolution, not really accustomed to having to hold that truth now. So feeling is not bad and does not mean you are delicate. Feeling just means you are accessing a lot all at once. Oh, that's an interesting shift. What did you choose this lifetime for that I keep forgetting? Let's see. Now the energy is switching to become a very vibrant yellow. Yellow and white. It almost feels like a sugar cookie. This lifetime, I was meant to feel. Other lifetimes have been very fixated on intellectualizing, processing, doing things. They're very human, very much moving forward, very much in that divine masculine. On the flip side, I've had many lifetimes where I'm caring. It's more in like the Mother Earth kind of energy. But the common denominator is there's this sense of purpose that I'm sort of chasing. That's just innate to who I am. This lifetime, while that also is present, this one is also unlocking something deeper in my system so that I can actually feel and experience more. And to my soul, that sense of feeling feels so sweet and interesting and curious. And I feel like as a human, I try to control how much I feel, again, because it's a lot and sometimes it's overwhelming. And I associate that with me being weak or me, I don't know, something dangerous is there. And she's basically saying, you came to this lifetime to feel all the feels. That's what this whole thing is about. And I think if I guess, change the way that I view feeling to have it more of a curious exploration instead of getting stuck in the story of all of it. But even as I'm saying that, with emotions, if something gets us frustrated, for example, my body feels it so deeply, and that frustration then sort of echoes into these other layers where now I'm trying to collaborate or move through the frustration through different avenues. Like it sort of creates a filter that tints the rest of my experiences in that moment. And to me, that's frustrating because if I want to move forward into alignment, I don't want everything like tainted by frustration. But to her, it's so interesting because it almost creates this portal to a new flavor of life. And I already have a tendency of approaching life in a little bit more of an abstract, curious, like artistic way, I suppose. But this is sort of doubling down on it. And I'm almost feeling this push to have it more heart and body led in terms of the curiosity rather than applying stories and trying to intellectualize everything. I feel like that's where the frustration happens because I'm trying to find the quote unquote right way forward and my body just wants to sit in it, and then I start like fixating on like, no, this is bad, I need to move forward, I need to do do this, do that, when I feel like she just wants to sort of push through as much as we can feeling wise and just explore what that means. And it reminds me of a dance improv exercise that I have always loved, which is you are essentially supposed to move your body. So if I'm raising my arms, rather than hitting a certain point and bringing them down or pushing them in a different direction, keep raising them. Like follow that line and see what happens. Maybe I end up like bending backwards. And then as I go backwards, like keep pushing that one specific line of expression or of movement. I don't know if that really makes sense. It's hard to explain it just verbally if you can't see me. But it feels sort of like that, where if I'm frustrated, using that as an example, how can I use that feeling to find something more? Like instead of correcting it because it's unpleasant, lean into it more. And that doesn't mean keep myself frustrated and stew in it, because that's also sort of then going into a weird direction. But it's more that sense of like, playing with it. How does it want to be expressed? What does my body want to do? Do I want to cry? Do I want to yell? What does the yelling feel like? After yelling, maybe it turns into a song. And then what do I want to sing? Why am I singing that? What color does the song feel like? You know what I'm saying? Like follow this interesting trail, which I know I've spoken about. I don't know when, but this is a concept that that's come to mind many times. I've just never really taken it that far, I guess. So that's interesting. I guess I will play with that. Where am I loyal to suffering out of familiarity? In asking this question, I hear her laughing. And she's expressing, I've got such a love-hate relationship with suffering, and I know that, and she knows that. Unfortunately, just due to my upbringing being a hot mess, I have had to train my system to not associate suffering with like safety, and like it's okay to thrive, it's okay to be happy. um, oh, and that has been quite a journey, and sometimes the suffering still pokes its little head in. But let's see. Her response to this one is very simple. You don't need to prove yourself. Because I tend to be so goal-oriented, while I have disconnected my sense of worth with my output, that used to be an issue. I was only as worthy as whatever I had accomplished or how much I did. I still have a lot of drive and motivation that sometimes keeps me stuck in, let me accomplish this goal so that this could happen, or I've done enough for today, or whatever. It's more of this like internal, I feel satiated once certain things are done. And while it's not focused necessarily on my worth, it's more focused on like pleasure and satisfaction. But it's a skewed variation of that, where I feel like that's basically me still having to do something in order to be deserving of pleasure, of peace, of rest, whatever. It's sort of like with exercise. I love exercising. I love moving. And if I'm not thoroughly exhausted, dead at the end of a workout, I feel so disappointed and like, meh, that kind of was lame. Instead of being grateful that I was able to move or whatever. And that's something that I've been working on, because if I don't exercise to the point of like complete exhaustion, or at least not every time, then tomorrow I'll have so much more energy and I can do even more movement or something like that instead of being so exhausted the next day. So that's definitely something that I feel like has been working or processing in the background without me necessarily being aware of it. But now that she sort of points that out, I feel like, because I'm so task oriented, I almost feel like my tasks need to be to rest, to not do anything for 30 minutes, to be bored. There's so much power and magic, I feel like, in being bored. Because I'm an only child, I spent a lot of time by myself and was frequently bored. And I feel like that is what ultimately led me to connecting to all of this magical stuff on the other side, because my brain knows how to wander, and to think about curious things. And I feel like I need to incorporate more of that. So I guess I will just be adding to my to-do list, spend 30 minutes doing nothing and stuff like that. I also used to really love to, I never really meditated in the traditional sense. I always had my own like variations of it, such as walking or dancing. But one of my favorite forms as a kid was laying down and like melting into the floor, into the grass, just becoming one with my environment and not even really thinking, just being present as if I were a wall or the grass or whatever. And that's not something that I really do anymore. And I feel like that emptiness, that state of just nothing is really beneficial. So I'm going to incorporate that. What am I protecting myself from that no longer exists? Ooh, this is interesting. So first the energy sort of came external, where it was like something hiding around the corner, and then it kind of faded because sure, sometimes I may feel vulnerable, but it's like once I snap out of it, then it's like, oh, I'm good, which pretty much is what she just showed me. And then I felt this darkness inside. I feel like, especially when I was younger, I was afraid of my power. And that's something that we so commonly deal with. That one quote, I don't remember how it goes, but it was something like, our greatest fear is not that, there it is. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That always rung so true for me. And especially now that I feel this need to share my perspectives and words and such with the world, I feel like deep down there's this fear of being a bad person, not being true to that message, something happening and me getting corrupted or whatever it is. And I know that I'm very self-aware and would not let that happen. That's not even in resonance with this path that I'm on, but there's still this fear of myself, of not fully understanding, I guess, all that I am, so thus being afraid of it. And what she's basically saying now is like, as you've grown and evolved, the things that have woken up are incredible. Like, they're very powerful and strong. There is nothing bad about them, you know? And as you keep sort of creating safe space for all of these shadow bits and stuff to butt their heads up, you see the love in them. You see that they're love. So why would there be something heavy hiding when you know at your core that it's all love? If there's something that's wounded, it's just wounded. It's scared, it's disconnected, and you know how to bring it back. So why would you be afraid of that? To make the human experience work, I guess like the whole point of this is to be disconnected from certain aspects of us. You know, it wouldn't necessarily be the same kind of interesting adventure if we knew everything from the get-go. That's a whole different point of living that is not necessarily the human experience. So of course there will be some discomfort, and there will be parts of you that you have, you know, still yet to bring online, but that's the whole point. And it's almost like, okay, whenever I get a message that is very much like, here it is, let it go, stop, I get this like weird restlessness of like, I just want to stop talking about it. Like, we're done. We already said it. You're good. Stop. Let it go. So that's what I'm getting. So I'll just let it go there. What kind of pleasure or love heals me the fastest? Warm, fuzzy. Warm, fuzzy. Whatever that is warm and fuzzy. A cat, some hot chocolate, a bath, hugging somebody, heart to hearts. Sort of heart to hearts. I feel like there's a physical element that needs to be present more so than words. I feel like I need a physical element and an embodied element. So feeling the connection from one person to the next. It's so interesting going straight to your soul to sort of get information, more insight about you, because if you would have asked me, Amber, human being, that question, I would have probably said talking, honestly, being seen, being heard. And I feel like that's where that intellectual part of my brain is coming forward and sort of like trying to control the narrative in the direction instead of coming back into that body embodied thing, because I am here to feel and experience. So what will naturally pull me back into grounding would be things that I can feel and experience. Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting swap. Where am I still dimming my voice out of habit? In close relationships. It's so strange. Well, no, it's not strange. It makes sense. speaking publicly, speaking to strangers, there's like no expectation usually, So, I mean, I can talk about whatever. I've got no shame. I'm an open book, happy to share if it helps people. But when it comes to intimate relationships, it's hard for me to communicate sometimes or to really like share what's on my heart. And my friends know this. I'm not one of those people that will ask for help. I kind of have to force myself to do that. Or if I'm like really having a hard time, then it's like, I need a lifeline, and we'll reach out. But it's really hard for me to reach out to people and get vulnerable just for myself. If someone else is getting vulnerable with me, like all day, love that, let's get in there. But if I'm the only one doing that, it feels scary for me. That sort of stems from fear of rejection, abandonment, and for the most part, I have gotten a lot better with that, and I feel like at this point I have a lot of people in place that have expressed their desire to support me, which is very helpful and like almost normalizes that for me, so that I know that if I want to be vulnerable, it's fine. It won't make it look like I think it's hard because when you are trying to help all of these people, there is this sense of maintaining this place of like, I know what I'm talking about. I have everything figured out. I have this gift and now I'm sharing it. But life is messy and sometimes I don't know what the fuck's going on with my own life. I can help you, but I don't know what the fuck's going on over here. It's like sometimes it gets kind of crazy, And I think that's part of what makes it difficult is I feel like there's a deep part of me that associates that messy vulnerability with shame. If there's no greater purpose, like if I'm not sharing it to help people and I'm just like stuck in this and needing somebody to help me for my own benefit, then I'm like, well, that's a waste of time. There's some like weird self-worth thing there, I think. But having so many people in place, it has been really helpful in normalizing that it's okay to need help. We are all human beings. I don't care how much you've got things figured out and put together. Life is meant to be a roller coaster, and sometimes you don't know what the fuck's going on, and that is literally what being a human is all about, and that's why we have each other. So that has been helpful. But deeper than that, I have a hard time expressing love. And I feel like this really started to settle itself in my last relationship. He had some intimacy issues, and they kind of screwed with my fear of abandonment, because if I would say something or do something and it wasn't reciprocated, it's like, oh man, I just like spilled out my guts and they're just kind of on the floor and we're staring at it. And that feels so awkward. So let me not do that again, is sort of the way that I move forward. But I know that that's not beneficial. I know that, people are wounded. It doesn't reflect anything on me, and I need to share regardless. And with my current partner, he's also very similar, where his method of expressing love is more through like gift giving, hugging, touching, snuggling. Like it's more physical, and it's more in the realm of giving, calling me on the phone in the middle of the day, texting me. Like it's like spending time together kind of thing. That's where he is, and he feels uncomfortable verbalizing affection. So I feel like there's this weird like knot that hasn't had space to fully untangle within me in terms of communicating love. So I try to express it elsewhere as much as I can, even in like these videos, at the ends of videos. I like to say I love you just to normalize, I love you. This is what I see about you that's so special. That, I don't know, there's something about that like vulnerable exchange that makes my physical body nervous. And again, it's just that fear of rejection and abandonment. But it's so silly because I love to feel love and like exchange love through a hug or through doing things or sharing moments with people. And verbalizing is literally the same thing. It's just another form of love. And if I feel comfortable hugging someone, I mean, it's the same thing as saying something. Like, it's just, that's a nicer reframe for me, where it's like there's love just pouring out of all of our senses. If you can pour it out of this one, you can pour it out of that one. It may not always be the one that you go to most of all, and that's totally fine, but I think I need to work on that, because the more that I can verbalize love when it's true and honest, I feel like it'll just better stabilize my system as this embodiment of love that is like pure and flowing, rather than my human self trying to like control it. You know, it's almost like instead of me being in control of the love is just in control of itself and going where it needs to go, which is the whole point anyways. Yeah, I feel like that's a full thought there. So now we're going to go into a little bit more collective stuff. I want to start with, how do you see the world right now beyond the fear and headlines? Oh, interesting. The analogy she's giving me is very simple, and I don't feel like this is something that she necessarily wants to get into, because speaking about it could just further sort of promote the fear and hysteria. I'm seeing the world like a glow stick. With a glow stick, you've got to crack it before, you crack it and you shake it, and then it lights up. And we're kind of in that cracking, shaking phase right now. Sometimes with some glow sticks, you crack it, shake it, and not all of it is lit up. You got to keep cracking it in other places, try again. It feels sort of like that. It's a messy, cracking, light up situation. But it's ultimately good. There's a lot coming to light, both figuratively and literally, that has been very much needed, and is sort of forcing everyone to see things differently so that they are able to step into their own autonomy and take control of their experience as a conscious creator here, instead of just going with whatever is served to them, which is usually a bunch of garbage. So, long story short, we're getting cracked open, and that is ultimately what is necessary for us to come together and come into ourselves and come back to love. And that's where she wants to leave it there, so we'll leave it there. My next question, then, sort of piggybacking off of that, what is humanity actually being asked to learn in this moment? She's saying, we see how division does not help us, yet to combat division, we continue to be divided. We choose division to combat division. And when you're a human being, it makes sense. It's like, if there are bad people in this world and we are trying to protect ourselves, we want to name the bad person, right? We want to put up walls so that they don't come in. We want to stop them. It's me versus you. Logistically, makes total sense. Energetically, it does not, because by doing that, you just continue promoting separation, disconnection, and fear, because there's a sense of something potentially taking control of you, you potentially being at the mercy of something. It reminds me actually of this paper that I wrote in college. Oh gosh, I don't remember exactly the details, but I know the book or the article, whatever it was about how, I think it was about how criminals, once they do something wrong, society has a tendency to sort of like push them out of just normal day living because they're now like tainted and bad. And the issue with that is those people typically have a very traumatic upbringing. A lot went wrong, which is why they're now doing crimes and hurting people and stuff like that. And what those people need most of all are compassion and love in order to begin healing those wounds so they can be an active member of society, be treated with respect and understand how to treat others with respect. But because greater society tends to just like throw them away, it kind of goes with cancel culture as well. We just throw them away because they're like, oop, don't want to see them, put them in the woods. It maintains division. And the people that have become outcasted then find other people that were also outcasted, and that then just grows, and that me versus you thing just becomes louder and more threatening in a way because all of these outcasts need a sense of belonging, so they're going to sort of like glue together, which just makes the entity of them or embodiment of them that much larger to now combat, when what needed to be done in the first place was understanding them, listening to them, giving them a safe space to unpack how they were taught to view things, how their fear sort of skewed things to think about things, how they want to think about things now, on the other side of that, and just give them space to evolve and understand the deeper connections between what they went through, the choices they've made, and where they want to go to now. Like, that is such a missing element. And when stuff gets crazy in the world, we want to protect ourselves, and the way that we do that is typically by closing ourselves off. Again, understandably so, but that just maintains survival. And what my soul is expressing is right now, instead of pointing fingers and yelling, this is the time to have meaningful conversations, to understand different points of view, why those points of view have come to fruition, what deeper needs or desires or safeties are within those perspectives. Perhaps are there other ways to satiate those, deeper needs that are maybe safer or healthier for the person? Because a lot of times they're rooted in survival and stuff like that, So it's like, this is the time to talk and come together and share and understand rather than fight. And that's what this whole thing is about. We are trying to come back into a state of love because that is where we came from. That's where we're going to go back to. And that is what is necessary of us right now in this big collective shift. I will say, speaking to people that have passed is very helpful. I feel like when someone lived their life a very specific way, once they pass on, that's completely done. Like they do a complete 180 usually, because now there's more information available to them. And it's so therapeutic and clarifying to see the deeper, processes that made them think a certain way and how that shifted and why it shifted. Like, to just connect the dots is so interesting. And this is even why I love doing this tuning into soul practice, because you gain so much more understanding of what's sort of going on behind the scenes. And you can do this with anybody. If there's somebody that you're really frustrated with, or someone that like did you wrong or something like that, call in their soul, have a conversation. Like, what the fuck is going on? Why did they do this? What is this trying to teach me? Why did they even think to do that in the first place? You know? And it helps you connect the dots so people don't seem as much as a threat. You understand it was never personal. It's not about you. They're surviving. Their perception is skewed. You know, it just illuminates so much. So definitely recommend leaning on that. While we're on the topic, I just wanted to share, there is a TED Talk. It is my favorite TED Talk ever in existence. I love it. I've spoken about it on the podcast once before a long time ago. This man named Daryl Davis, he's a Black musician. He decided to befriend the leader of a KKK clan to really understand like what their problem is. Because he's just a normal dude and they simply don't like him because he is Black, you know, racism. And the story is so insane and beautiful and important, especially for today. And I just can't recommend it enough. The KKK leader ultimately left the organization, and he really changed some people's minds that were just very ill-informed and uneducated about, you know, different cultures and different types of people. For my subscribers that are watching this video, obviously this is a different day. I'm wearing something different, coming from the future. After I filmed this whole episode, there are some concepts that we're going to be talking about in this collective piece that sort of stuck with me and made me realize something. There is something that my partner and I have sort of been having to deal with. I am not going to share it. I'm not going to get into detail because it is not my story to share. However, he is an immigrant. This is a very difficult time in the United States for immigrants. People are going into survival and making decisions that are not good for them or anybody else, and unnecessarily targeting people that are just normal people like my partner, and causing an unfortunate chaos pile. And I'll leave it at that, keep it general. But through this process, my brain has not been panicking. My brain has not taken it personally or felt any sort of way about it, even though it has the potential of really forcing changes for us. And again, after filming this episode, I was thinking about it. I was like, wait a second. The world feels like it's on fire. And I feel so separate from it, even though we are literally within the fire. Oh man, in a way. And I was trying to think about why that was. And I realized it's because I have faith. I understand that even when there is chaos happening, there's deeper purpose within it. And that allows me to ultimately move through it unscathed. So during all of this chaos right now, I feel like what I'm trying to get at is the world feels like it's on fire. People are in survival mode no matter what side or end or piece of the space they're in, however they're thinking, whatever they correlate with, no matter where you are. We are feeling the effects of the chaos, and sometimes people get a little ugly. But again, this is not the time to give in to that itch to maintain chaos. This is the time to bring to light truth, bring to light compassion, and understanding, because that is ultimately what's going to stop things from gaining crazy momentum. Additionally, should you experience life changes that are sort of out of your control due to a chaotic world, it's important to understand that the universe is not abandoning you. There is a greater purpose to it. And I think what's really helped me is understanding, like, if things are meant to change, they're meant to change. Great. Where are we going? What are we doing? What's the purpose of it? What magic is there? Why am I contracted, for lack of a better word, to go over there? My brain operates in a very hopeful manner where I'm always trying to figure out the whys and the collaboration. And I honestly feel like that makes all the difference, because sometimes things happen in, things always happen in such a way that are ultimately for the betterment of our soul, of each other, of the collective. At least that's how I've always come to sort of operate, and it's never let me down. So when in doubt, I'm totally going on a tangent, but when in doubt, lean on the hope, and it'll make things feel a lot less scary. And I'll leave it there. Going back to Amber of the past. What does regulation look like on a collective level? Like regulating our nervous system, or just, all this chaos. What would that look like? I feel like it comes back to expression. Art, for so long, since I don't know when, has been an expression of ideas. It can be political, it can be personal, it can be ancestral, it can be cosmic. Like, it can be whatever you want it to be. And that would be anything from visual arts, painting, collage, dance, theater, writing, to stuff like singing, fashion design, interior design, makeup, sculptures. It can be literally whatever you want. And I feel like we're all a little different, so we all need something different. But at this point, people don't really know how to speak and listen politely all the time. So sometimes something like art is a really powerful way to begin building bridges that don't feel offensive. So we can begin to feel familiar or comfortable with certain people or certain types of ideas or certain vibes. It's like art just starts to speak on that subconscious level, and then that naturally makes it a little more normalized, and then we're more inclined to listen and unpack it and stuff like that. So I feel like, if anything, she just is suggesting we share art or explore new art, listen to music from a new culture that you've never listened to before, eat new food, watch some sort of tribal dance video from some region that you've never really explored before. It really just comes back to seeing and finding the humanity and everything, understanding that we're all human, and I feel like that will naturally make us feel more connected and mute that sense of there being something crazy hiding around the corner, because we'll see the power in each other and the beauty in this experience here. And the more that we amplify that love and connection, the quieter all of that excess noise becomes, because it doesn't matter as much, because what matters most is our collective unity. That's where the power is. What does it mean to live a meaningful life in uncertain times? Okay. She's saying we tend to feel, if things are uncertain or chaotic or heavy, we tend to feel a responsibility to maintain that heaviness. And I feel like you see this a lot on social media. If something horrible is happening in some part of the world, if someone, like let's say an influencer, if they don't address the horrible thing, or they don't regularly post about it, I've seen many times people in their comments, basically saying, what are you doing? This needs to be, spotlit and stuff like that. And sure, awareness is incredibly important. However, now what? What are we going to do about it? And also, social media is not the only space to get things done. I know for me personally, and this may be controversial, but I'm just being completely honest here. For me personally, I get very overwhelmed and overstimulated when there is a lot happening somewhere and when I am seeing it all the time, especially due to my trauma. I can't watch videos of people getting murdered, okay? And I understand that for some people, unfortunately, that is something that they have to witness and deal with all the time. It is not healthy for me to see that all the time. My system is not wired for that. It fucks up my PTSD. I just can't do it. It's not healthy for me. I need to be out there helping people feel grounded, centered, stable, so that they can either move away from situations like that, empower themselves to shift things so the weight of those situations don't just completely crumble them down. I am here to help people come back to their light, come back to their power. So I need to do what my nervous system needs to remain regulated and stabilized so that I can show up like that. Because if I were to just post all of this stuff all the time, it's incredibly traumatizing for people. It's not normal for human beings to have to see that all the time, which is why when somebody does see something like that, it's traumatizing. If you go through it in real life, it fucks with you. And it's because we're not supposed to be doing that. So when we see these crazy videos of just people getting hurt everywhere, it's not healthy. So my approach is going to be, what can I do to ultimately help them? I'm going to focus on healing the land, healing the collective, helping people sort of, reconnect their life. I'm here to just help people move forward. I saw this a lot even when I lived in Salem, Massachusetts, where the witch trials were. The energy of the land was so light. It was so magical. I went to the space where the quote-unquote witches, because they obviously weren't all practicing, were hung. And even the land felt so clarifying. I have not experienced land that felt so good. And what was so interesting is I go to the museums, I look at the plaques, I see the people there, and everyone is fixating on the horrors of this place where, because this horrible thing happened, they're just maintaining horrible horrors, hanging, no, it's fixating on all of the negative. But the spirits that went through it are you know what? This was a big turning point in the collective during this time. This was our soul contract. This is what we agreed to. We did it happily. Things have changed, and that's so beautiful. Job was done. And that's that, But then the humans, again, horrible, bad, hanging, no. And it was such a weird duality where I even saw people would leave offerings out for those that were hung, which was so beautiful. I loved how the past and present were sort of married together. But it's still coming from this place of them suffering. They're not suffering. They did what they needed to do. They are proud of that. They so selflessly sacrificed their bodies, in order for this greater collective weird energetic thing to correct itself. And their souls are proud of that. And approaching them more with that understanding, seeing the productivity forward, seeing how we can continue the story, continue expanding that like cool mystical energy into the modern times, was where the good stuff was. And collectively, we just get so stuck on like having to be miserable because miserable things are happening, but that doesn't necessarily help anything, and if anything can make us overwhelmed. So there's a very fine line between being aware and like traumatizing yourself. And all of our thresholds are different. Our work in this space is all very different. How we're meant to help others move forward or help the collective move forward during times like this is all different. So some people may be naturally drawn or have a stronger resistance to or sensitivity to seeing things like that because they're maybe meant to be like on the ground, like actively helping people. And that's beautiful, but that's not everyone's role. And I think it's just more important to heal and focus on the path forward and how we can support those people in moving forward so we don't just sit in rotten garbage, because that maintains fear, which keeps the power out of our hands. This is a complicated thing to discuss, and I feel vulnerable not typing something out that's like well thought out, because this is such a sensitive topic nowadays. But I hope that sort of gets the picture across. And if anything, I just want to say there is no right and wrong way to move forward right now. These are weird times and everybody's doing their best. Now I'm looking through my list of questions. I don't even know how I got on that topic. I have no idea where I was going, what the original question was. So I'm just going to move on. I don't know if I'm going to re-ask the same question. Amber from the future coming in again. I just want to bridge this thought because obviously I was struggling. So to summarize what I had meant to say is living a meaningful life right now means not feeling a responsibility to fixate on the rot and instead tend to the growth so it has the support and nourishment it ultimately needs to survive. Because my brain gets fuzzled up, as you'll see in a second, I'm going to ask the same question again, and the conversation will naturally flow into how to focus on the growth so that it has the nourishment to survive. But I just wanted to bridge that real quick. Okay, back to the original conversation. So the next question, what does it mean to live a meaningful life in uncertain times? Is that the question I just asked? I wonder, because the energy feels similar to that. Okay. Well, anyways, moving forward, sorry. Living a meaningful life in uncertain times. Things are all moving. We're all moving. We are all one. And I feel like it comes back to connection. It comes back to sharing, brainstorming, exchanging, We're all, as we come back or really awaken in our present conscious creator state of being, as our frequency raises and we become more just energetically present and aware, we have a lot more autonomy. This is new for current time collective, for our current state of evolution. This isn't new way back when, but for right now, for many people and in many cultures, this is a new way to be. Which is why a lot of the spiritual stuff is very taboo and has been very taboo. So because this is new territory, this is time to brainstorm together how we want to move forward. Try things out rather than thinking that there is a right way forward. This happens a lot in sessions. If someone wants to, let's say, build their own business, they might schedule a session because they want to know how to do that. And in the session, sure, for some people in certain circumstances, there is like a very specific chronological way that they want it to be approached, or the energy wants to sort of manifest physically. But a lot of times it's completely up to you. You have full autonomy over how exactly it manifests, as long as the deeper purpose behind it, the deeper intention stays the same. As long as you're staying within that, like as long as I'm embodying love, I can give someone a box of chocolates, I can make them a mug, I could buy them a book, you know. It doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to express my love in a physical form, and however I want to do that is totally my call. That's where that conscious creator aspect comes in. So living a meaningful life entails, you know what's so weird? My brain, okay, every time I read this question, for some reason, I like interpret it differently. So I looked at it again, and then now my brain went a whole different direction. But let me finish this thought, and then I'll slide into the next. So living a meaningful life in uncertain times means connecting, exploring, playing, trying things on, letting things go without expectation, without judgment, just pure intention and curiosity and openness. That's one interpretation. The energy, the second time, or the third time, whatever, this last time that I read that question, went more into small things. It's about finding those small moments of connection with the divine, the flower blooming, the little kid laughing, the cat meowing, a smile that you share with a stranger. When things are uncertain, the one thing you can always count on is that things are going to be moving. You know, it's that divine love undertone that is carrying us through everything. So the more that we can connect to that, we feel like we're one with the water, we're one with the waves. So rather than being at the mercy of the waves or being separate from the waves, we are on the ride, actively carving out where the waves go and how we want them to be and look like and do and all that stuff. So it really comes down to the simple moments of connection, ensuring your body feels connected, your mind feels connected, your soul feels connected. What I like to recommend for some people is doing self-care that sort of satiates each of those things. So throughout the day, do one thing for your body, one thing for your mental, emotional stuff, one thing for your soul. And it can be something as small as eating a carrot, smiling at a stranger, sitting down, snuggling with a cat, or something as big as getting a massage, climbing a mountain. For mental, emotional stuff, it could be like go see your therapist, or maybe write a book, you know, based on what you're feeling. For the soul, go into a deep trance or go to some sort of, retreat of sorts. You know, it can be however big, however small. Satiate each thing every single day, and it really makes all the difference. Okay, and finally, our last question to my soul. How do we remember who we were before survival became the focus? How do we remember who we were before survival became the focus? I feel like that leads into inner child stuff. Sort of like connect with who you were before the world told you who you were not. And I feel like that journey for each of us will be very different. But it may be interesting actually to call in your like baby self. Speak to your baby self. Have them hang out. Because babies already are more present astrally than physically. So when you connect to sort of who you were before words, before true form. Even their bodies are more cartilage. They're a lot more malleable and ooey gooey than a adult. So just like tuning into you in the early phases of forming might be interesting, because it provides information on how you sort of want to experience the physical world, but there's still a lot open for interpretation, And ways to connect with your baby self could be anything from looking at baby pictures, thinking about your baby self, going into meditation and just bringing their energy down. This golden bubble that we discussed, put a golden bubble around you, call in your baby self, allow their energy to expand within this bubble and sit within it. How does it feel? What textures, visuals, sounds, smells, tastes are present? Any mannerisms or characteristics that stand out? You can even maybe like draw or paint a picture of them in an abstract way, write a book about them, whatever it is. Just play with their energy. If you're going on a walk, invite their energy in. If you're washing the dishes or cleaning, just be around them all the time. With any energy being, it's sort of like with a person, with a friend. When we spend a lot of time with somebody, naturally we'll start to absorb some of their like mannerisms or characteristics. We just sort of there's like this shared identity that happens, and the same happens with energy beings. That's why a lot of times our spirit guides don't even need to necessarily talk to us. But if we have a being that's like a master or something in one specific area, it just being in close proximity to us will like naturally rub off on us, and we start to understand things better and stuff. So the same thing happens with that. You don't necessarily need to do anything with it. You can even automatic write, like ask your baby self questions and just write whatever answer first comes to mind. What my soul is expressing is our bodies are very complex and almost like a weird, complicated puzzle for a reason. Because in order to sort of unlock the chains that we feel we are bound by here, we need to devote time and energy to like unpacking why we allowed those chains to come here in the first place. There's not one like cure-all expedited path to coming to know yourself. It's a puzzle for a reason, and that's the fun of it, quote unquote fun. It's not fun as a human sometimes, but energetically they're like, fuck yeah, this rocks. So I think the more that you can just question yourself, be curious about why you do the things you do, and just try new things on. It really just comes down to being curious. Being curious. And trying things out. Just keeping that one pretty general as well, because I feel like we are very wise, even when we don't feel like we are. We ultimately know what we need to connect back to ourselves. Even if we don't think we know, we always know. Our body always knows. So I think she just wants us to take charge. That is the first step of remembering who you were before survival became the focus. The first step is trust in yourself and listening to your body instead of your mind. All right. Well, that was very interesting. Thank you, Soul, for coming in and chatting. I love you. Thank you, my friends here, for listening and joining and being part of this adventure. I love you just as much, if not more. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you so much for listening to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. To learn more about me, book a session, learn about my mentorship program, all that good stuff, you can visit channelwithamber.com. Follow me on Instagram at channelwithamber. Special thank you to Unicorn Heads for my theme song, A Mystical Experience. I'll see you next time.